How does this meter work and why are beginners told to use this meter? Let us take a very difficult lighting situation. Can you tell me a difficult lighting situation? What would you consider?
Something along the lines of a person sitting in a room with a big glass window on the side, and on the outside there is the blazing sun,
Okay,
and on the inside there's only indirect lighting from that window.
okay,
A
that
very
would be
high
difficult.
dynamic range scene.
Sorry,
A high dynamic range scene.
high dynamic, but I don't know what is dynamic range. Sorry,
There's
explain properly. Others are there.
there's lots of light as well, but there's also shadow in the same frame. Yeah, and there's details both in the heights and in the shadows.
Okay,
Musical concert.
musical concert.
Concert
Where there are
lighting.
spotlights. Okay, I'll give you a simple one. Stage lighting. So here is the stage, and people are standing here, dancing, fooling, whatever they like. And on stage, some lights are from here, some are from here, some are from behind. So let us assume that there is one light here which I am drawing by the sun symbol at the back. So the subjects are backlit. Now you are taking picture from here. Okay, this light is coming in your frame. Whenever something bright comes in your frame, what happens? What happens?
It's washed out.
No, you get underexposure. You get underexposure because something is very, very bright. So, in the simplest matrix metering, just for acceleration sake, I am doing this. There are 5 segments. That's why it's called segmented metering or multi-segmented metering also. So if I take this and hold it here, in which segment is the light coming? In this segment. Correct? Now, if the light is so strong that it is going to create a problem with our exposure, then that segment temporarily shuts down. Temporarily shuts down. So if it cannot cause a problem, no, we can go ahead with the thing. Same way we come here, let us say this area is so very, very dark that will cause an exposure problem. We have seen, no? If you take a reading from the dark area, it's going to cause a problem. So if that happens, once again, that area will shut down. But you do not know at which point it will shut down. That is the engineer who has designed the meter knows about it. And we don't care either. We know that something like this happens. So now the remaining two areas, the camera reads one, contrast, and two, brightness. It reads the contrast and brightness of the remaining segments. Mind you, I have shown 5 segments to make it easy, but your camera can have 150 segments, 200, 250 segments. But don't think that the more segments is better. It depends on certain other things. So what the camera does, for the remaining segments, it checks the contrast and the brightness. Now, within your camera, there is a data bank of 30,000 exposures. I don't know whether you knew about it. 30,000 exposure data bank is in every digital camera. Before you can wink an eye, the electronics will select one of those 30,000 exposures which closely matches the contrast and brightness of the available thing here. And that is the exposure it gives you. And it has been so well designed that in most cases it will work very well. Now, I don't use this. I like to be in control myself. I don't like what they do because I have also seen that under very contrasty lighting, this too also gives a problem. So I don't use matrix, but matrix is suggested for most people. It's good. You can use it. Let's come to the center weighted. Center weighted means it takes a reading more from here, from the central area. Why? Because in most cases we put our subject in the center. Something we should not be doing it from the composition point of view, but yes, most of us will put the subject in the center. So the camera reads mainly from here. It also reads from these areas, mind you, it reads from these areas. But as it goes away from the lens, as it goes away from the center, it reads less and less and less. Maximum reading is from here, so it is called center weighted. Now, advanced cameras even allow you to select whether you want a 6 millimeter diameter or an 8 millimeter or 11 millimeter. Advanced cameras give you that option. Some cameras do not. Okay, so this you point it to the main source, to the main subject. So if I'm standing here with a brighter or darker background, the amount of exposure mistake is less because you are concentrating on the subject in the center area, which is being standing there. So whatever little error is there is compromise is less because you are not reading the whole thing. Are you following this? Okay, and spot I already told you, you can stand from far and take the reading. But one thing I forgot to tell you, when you come to the spot meter, it does not read from the sides. The spot meter only reads that spot, whatever it is, 3 degrees, 3%, 5%, whatever it is. It only reads from here. And in modern cameras, thankfully, we are able to move the spot where we want for better composition, which was not possible in the real. So, many people use center weighted. I do use center weighted lots of times, but when I want to be very critical, I will go on to the spot meter. Because spot meter takes time to take a reading. Sometimes you have to take a reading from bright area, from dark area, average it, whatever you want to do. When you are shooting negative, black and white negative or color negative, your exposure is based more on the darker area of the subject. But when you are shooting digital, your exposure is more for the highlights. Because in a digital camera, if the highlights get overexposed, there is no way of bringing back the detail. Within limitations, of course. If I'm shooting in RAW, if my picture is overexposed by one stop, I'm not worried. I'll be able to get the details. But if more than that, you might not get it. But it's important to understand the metering. Unless we do that and practice with it, we cannot expose correctly. And we are so used to depending on the meter. Tell me what happens if your meter is found out? When you go back home, saying that I cannot take pictures today because my meter has gone. What do you do in that case? There is a method. In fact, when I go out with my students, sometimes I surprise them. I'll tell them what is the reading from there, and everybody take the camera here. I say, don't take the camera. This is the shutter speed and this is the aperture for this ISO. And they look at me as if to say I have come from some magician or something. It's very simple. It's called the Sunny 16 rule. You have to study it and slightly change it to suit your conditions. It's very, very simple. Someday, if we are able to go out and actually have a outing, so to say, we can do that. I can explain all those things over there. And you would be quite right. In fact, I can tell you one thing. You take a meter reading from your camera, and if I take a reading of my judgment, and you say that the readings are not matching, I tell you that my reading is correct and camera is wrong. It requires just practice. There is nothing big about it. If you understand where the shadows fall, how deep the shadow is, it just works on that simple thing. We won't go into that right now. But that can also be done. Now to fine tune it further, you have been all using film.